Welcome to Fisher Sports Desk. I'm Jake Tinker.
And I'm John DiMuro.
We have some exciting college and professional sports to talk about.
Plus our roundtable discussion and a sit-down interview with Bill Brown, co-founder of the Fisher football program. Let's get started.
The men's lacrosse team looked to get back on the winning track against Houghton. Let's see how they did. With Fisher up 2-0, senior Gary Bova scored his third goal of the game here. Houghton goalie Christopher Bucarelli trying to keep his team in the game with a great save here. But it wasn't enough. Here it's Andrew Rosso getting his 15th goal of the season. Then it's Rosso assisting to Dante Giordano for another goal. Fisher went on to win 22-2, improving to 5-5 for the season. Nick Papiankos finished with 3 goals and 2 assists. Alex Hunt finished with 3 goals and 1 assist. 6 players had multiple goals, and Andrew Rosso had 1 goal and 4 assists.
The men's baseball team is having a great season. They took on U of R at home. Let's take a look at the highlights.
In the bottom of the second is Joe Simmons doubling down the left field line. Next up, Victor Konstantinovsky was set up first and third for the Cardinals with 1 out. Then Evan Ryan would bring in Simmons with a ground out, putting Fisher up 2-0. Fisher also had the defense working. Konstantinovsky would throw out Sam Steele, who strayed too far after a failed bunt. Then Ryan would flash the leather to nab the screamer up the middle. U of R would tie the game up on the sacrifice fly to right. But that is all starting pitcher Dominic Pisciotto would give up in his 5 2/3 innings. The bats would come alive during the bottom of the 4th, as Malcolm Kelsey would get the RBI triple, giving Fisher back the lead. Then Konstantinovsky would drive Kelsey in with the double. Next, Ryan would hit a single to drive in Konstantinovsky. Sidewinder Kevin Berg would come on to relieve Pisciotto, and the Cardinals would take it from there by a final of 14-2. Nate Rothel would go 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. Cody Wiktorski would add 2 hits, 2 RBI, and 2 runs, including a triple and stolen base. Piscotto would strike out 4 on his way to earning the W, moving to 2-1 on the season.
The women's lacrosse team is also having a stellar season. Let's take a look at some of their recent games. Picking up in the first half, with the score already knotted at 1 apiece, Jamie Wallace would help the Cardinals take a 1-goal lead. Then, after 2 Brockport goals, Fisher's leading goal scorer, Jordan Johnson, would score a 2nd goal of the game, tying the score at 3. Brockport would again take control. This goal here by Jessica Badrick would give the Eagles a 5-3 lead midway through the first. The Cardinals would fight back, with Wallace fighting through a number of Eagle defenders to score a 2nd goal of the day, to pull the Cardinals within 1. Following another Brockport goal, Johnson would go for the hat trick and miss, but Morgan Young would come through to scoop up the rebound and score for the Cardinals. Brockport would answer though. Kelly Wall shoots a nice underhand shot past Fisher's Haley Peets to again give Brockport a 2-goal lead. That would go on to be Brockport's final margin of victory, as they finished the game with an 11-9 win over Fisher. Johnson would finish with 4 goals for the Cardinals. Wallace and Holbrook each added 2 goals apiece.
The team also visited Hartwick, where senior Sierra Badger scored 4 goals, bringing her career total to 100. She is the 12th player in the 17-year history of the program to reach that mark. Fisher won by a score of 15-2. They also went on the road to face Rowan University, where they won by a score of 13-4, going 4-0 on the road trip. Mackenzie Levin had 5 goals, and 4 players total had multiple goals. Back at home, the team won a tight one against rival Nazareth by a score of 10-9. Corey Holbrook had 3 goals, and Jordan Johnson and Chrissy Cook had 2 goals apiece. FSD's James Deasy sat down with Bill Brown and discussed his co-founding the football program here at St. John Fisher.
Thank you, guys. I'm here with Bill Brown, one of the co-founders of the Fisher Football Program. Thank you, Bill, for taking the time speaking with me. And today, we're just going to get right into questions. You, Joe Hazard, and Dan O'Connor were the first ones to really get the football program up and started. And, how did things come to be? What happened at first to get it started?
Well, the basis for us to even think about starting a football program like this was the fact that what was on campus we felt was not only inadequate, but is actually dangerous for the students who wanted to play some sort of football. In the intramural program, we had students on a regular basis getting hurt, some of them seriously. We've had concussions and so on. We had just too many of the students wanting to play tackle football, but without any equipment. So it was really risky at that point in time.
Right. At any point when you guys were starting the program, did you have any doubt from either the school or anybody that was just kind of against the program? Did you guys have any doubt that you wouldn't get it off the ground?
We had plenty of doubts about whether or not we'd ever get it off the ground. And we started back in '69, and it took us 2 years to get there. There were plenty of challenges. We had to build a program from scratch with little help from the administration. They were very concerned about the liability issues of the program, and as thus would just as soon see us not build a football program as to succeed at that. But they also tried not necessarily get in our way a lot. All right. We had to do some very interesting things that I don't think any other football program did that as a starting football program. First, as a club program, we incorporated it under the New York State Charter as a separate corporation, nonprofit corporation from the college. And that in itself was an education all by itself. But then we had to finance ourselves, figure out how to do that. One aspect was financing from a group of people did a lot of fundraising for Aquinas football, and they also decided to help us out in regards to the fundraising and collected a whole lot of sponsors for our program and so on. We generated about $7,000 from there, but that still didn't meet all our bills. So the next thing we did is we actually ran a referendum for the student body. The student council had a way of running referendums on issues, and our issue was to increase the activity fee by $15, such that we could grab $5 of those $15 for our activity, and obviously the other activities around campus benefited from that as well. But we had the student body vote on it. We had posters and banners the day of the referendum and all that. We were able to pass the referendum to increase that activity fee. Otherwise, we would have had other problems. Had to pay for our insurances. We had to pay the referees. I wrote all the checks for the referees at every game. We had to pay people who worked the stadium for us in terms of security and all that. So there were plenty of things that we had to do as a football program that the typical club program would not have to do.
Right, in a sense, with the whole football program, and what was your fondest memory, or just memories of being a part of the team or whatnot that really sticks out, and you'd like to share with everybody? Do you have one memory in particular, or?
Well, in regards to memories, every year that I go to another football game, I have more memories about the football program itself. It's a pretty spectacular success story. And all along the way, the key thing in regards to the St. John Fisher football program is that we had the right people showing up at the right time. Dan O'Connor had the right two guys to show up at his first meeting where we were the only ones there because we all took our responsibility seriously and worked hard to make the football program come along. Dan also met Frank Petras, our first coach, who had a huge effect in terms of bringing all of the administrative issues in focus and making it all happen. Then we had coach after coach that had to show up in the right time. Frank only coached us 1 year. The coach next year initially didn't make the cut. He didn't make the team, so we had a backup coach that took over the program, and he was excellent. He now coaches out in California somewhere. But then Bob Baer. Bob Baer did such great things for the club football program, including that national championship.
Indeed.
Okay. And Catherine Keogh. She brought the program to a D3 level. She challenged Paul Vosberg to make sure that we were a winning program, and Paul again anteed up and did a good job there, and it's provided a really exciting version of football you don't always see at other college programs.
Right, and speaking of Coach Fosberg, we've had him on our show for Fisher Football Focus here, and he was talking about, throughout the season how they've progressed and whatnot. And what was your mindset about how they performed this past season? And something that you might want to say to Coach Fosberg.
I don't have to say much to Paul. He knows his kids as well as anybody. But they started slow. They really did. They did not exemplify the performance of players in past years in regards to high level of teamwork to succeed at the goal of winning games. Mm-hmm. They got a lot better as the season went on, and they had a decent season after it was all over with. Mm-hmm. You go back to the days when we started, when our first season was 0-6. Not much that you would think you could be proud of, but we are very proud of the fact that we got the team on the field in the first place. And we got many kudos across the campus about the challenges that we had to overcome. Mm. Very seldom do you have to start a corporation to start a football program as a student. Right. And that was part of our challenges.
Well, and then back to to the football, and with this next season coming up, I know that you spend some time at the games as well. What's your outlook on this next season?
My outlook on this next season is that I will enjoy myself again going to as many home games as I can get to, because it's an exciting brand of football that Paul brings to the field. Right. And I'm sure the students will live up to the challenge and objectives. And as in life experiences, you're going to have failures at times, you're going to have successes at times. The important thing is to be able to handle both well. Right. Probably handle your failures more or in a better outlight than you do your successes, and they'll always be successful in life as well.
Well, thank you, Bill, for taking the time and talking to us about the program. I'm James Deasy. Back to you guys at the studio.
When we come back, we'll show you how baseball is starting. Also, we'll show you who fared well at the Masters tournament.
And James Bailey will join us in our roundtable discussion. All that and more, next.
Welcome home, man.
Welcome back to Fisher Sports Desk.
The Baltimore Orioles are off to a red-hot start. They recently made a trip to Fenway to take on the Red Sox. It was the home debut for big free agent signing David Price, who struggled, giving up 5 runs in 5 innings. It was also the home debut for new Sox closer Craig Kimbrell, who gave up the lead with 2 outs in the ninth by surrendering a 3-run homer to the O's' Chris Davis. The Orioles moved to 6-0, the only unbeaten team in the majors, their first start of that magnitude since they moved to Baltimore in 1954.
The Cubs are also off to a hot start, to the tune of the best record in the National League. Here's how they fared against the Reds. Didn't look good early for the Cubbies, as Red starter Brandon Finnegan held them hitless over his first 6 2/3 innings. But in the 7th, Jason Hayward would pull the Cubs within 1 with this 2-run single. Then, in the 8th, Addison Russell would propel the Cubs to victory with a 3-run homer, putting the score at 5-3. And that would be the final, as Hector Rondon put the finishing touches on the game for Chicago.
To the Masters now, as it looked like reigning champion Jordan Spieth was headed to another victory at Augusta. Until the 12th hole on Sunday, the final day of the tourney, as Spieth would struggle and receive a quadruple bogey, surrendering a 5-stroke lead and opening up the door for the rest of the field. And it ended up being Danny Willett who took home the green jacket. Willett earns his first major championship, becoming the second Englishman to win the Masters, and first European in 17 years.
James Bailey will join us when we come back, as we end the show talking more about the MLB, and how the NBA playoffs are shaping up.
What if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.
Welcome back. We're now joined by James Bailey to discuss some NBA and MLB. Welcome, James.
Happy to be here.
So first topic, guys. What are your first impressions of this MLB season so far?
Well, obviously it's still very early on, but my Baltimore Orioles 2-0 still have 160 games away from a perfect season, so that hope's still alive. But I think that there's been a couple interesting storylines. Obviously, Trevor Story, playing out the storyline there for the Colorado Rockies, 4 homers in the first 3 games. I think that's pretty impressive. Obviously, we'll have to see how that develops throughout the season. I think the most competitive division that looks like so far is going to be the AL East because actually my Baltimore Orioles look like they're going to be the stellar team in that division. They still could surprise people with their power hitting. So, just from top to bottom, there might not be a great team in that division, but it should be very competitive, all 5 teams with each other. It'll also be interesting in the NL to see who kind of pulls out on top. I know a lot of people have the Cubs as the early World Series prediction. But you can't count out a team like the Giants every 2 years. This would be their year. The Mets obviously last year proved that they'd belong up there at the top in the discussion. So overall, there's a lot of little storylines, and obviously very early in the season right here, early April. But it'll be interesting to see how everything progresses. As we get through the months and the weeks into the actual season.
Yeah, James, like you mentioned it, AL East. Probably the deepest division. They probably don't have the best team. That might belong to the Royals, the Mets, or the Cubs maybe. Mm-hmm. But it seems like year in, year out, they have the best division. All 5 teams have a chance to playoffs, 85, 95 wins in that range for all 5 teams. But like this year more than ever, it seems like there's just so many teams that could win it. In baseball, you never know like what team's going to get hot in September, October, and eventually win the crown like the Royals did last year. So
You both make great points about the AL East so far. But one of the interesting story points that we actually have to keep an eye on is the bullpens. We've seen it the last couple of years with the Kansas City Royals. So now the AL East is almost trying to emulate that. The Yankees went out, they got Aroldis Chapman from the NL Central. The Red Sox went out, they got Craig Kimbrell from the NL West. And then the Blue Jays went out and got Drew Storen from the NL East. And this is on top of already young bullpens. The Blue Jays had Osuna, the Yankees had Betances, and the Red Sox had Uehara. So I think it's just interesting to now watch as these monster bullpens are developing in the AL East.
And you can't forget Baltimore, which has Darren O'Day and Zach Britton, both All-Stars last year, that could be pretty good closers in the 8th and 9th. Baltimore may not have the strongest starting rotation, but if they can get through the first 7 innings, they do have a strong bullpen as well. So it will be pretty interesting overall for the AL East.
Good points. So switching gears now, we're getting closer to the playoffs for the NBA, and one of the hot topics right now is the Golden State Warriors. Are they going to make 73 wins? So, John, I'm going to start with you.
They had a great chance to get 73 up until 3 games ago. They lost to the Celtics at home, their first home loss of the season. Then recently again, they lost to the Timberwolves at home in overtime. So right now they're at 9 losses already. So they need to win out the next 4 games to get 73 wins. And then look at the schedule. 2 games against the Spurs, 2 games against the Grizzlies, who are also pretty good. 2 at home, 2 on the road. I don't think it's going to happen. And especially they're going to want – the title's more important than the wins. And I think the pressure's getting to them. So they're going to need to rest their guys. The Spurs are too, but I don't think they're going to win all 4 of the next 4.
Yeah, I could see it happening, but I definitely think that the Timberwolves loss was the most surprising. I just think it's weird how the NBA is scheduled because the last 4 games are against just 2 teams. They're playing 2 against two good Western teams. I mean, Memphis is kind of decimated by injury, but obviously the Spurs are always going to be tough. And actually, in theory, should the Spurs win out and the Warriors lose out, the Spurs would actually take the number 1 seed.
That'd be something.
So yeah, that'd be pretty weird to see. But it's kind of odd. You don't know what you're gonna get. I think that it'll be tough for them to break the record, but I definitely don't see them losing more than one. Maybe that game in San Antonio, I can see them tying the record.
Well, I think what we've seen so far these last couple of weeks now is when teams go for history or when individual players go for statistical history, there's almost kind of this fear when it starts becoming real. Like back in baseball when Maris and Babe Ruth were going for the 61 homers in a season. Yeah. They ended up being haunted, and as they got closer and closer and the goal seemed real, there was more of a backlash. People were paying more attention. There was more scrutiny on every game. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing with the Warriors now. And I think the best thing for them to do is not necessarily rest their guys, because rest will take you out of your regular rhythm. Kind of just go minutes reduction now. Curry and Klay Thompson don't have to play 36 minutes. Drop them down towards 30, 32 minutes. Keep them in a regular rotation so they're fresh for the playoffs. Because, as we've seen in the West, there is no easy out, even from an 8 seed. So I think the best thing is just rest and get ready for the playoffs, and because eventually you are going to run into the Spurs. Regular season against the Spurs doesn't matter at this point, other than for the record. Well, the 1 seed, obviously. But I think the more important thing is just get ready for the Spurs come playoff time.
Yeah, you mentioned the West is deep, 1 through 8, but it really still is a 2-horse race, the Spurs and the Warriors. I don't think anybody's going to beat them. Like the Thunder, I mean, they're a 3rd seed, they got a shot, but I don't really think there's really any debate there. But what about the East, though? Does anybody have a chance of beating the Cavs? I know the Cavs are a little bit not quite as good as people thought they were going to be, especially with Kyrie Irving.
Well, I think that, first of all, I don't think you can discount teams like the Clippers and the Thunder out in the West. I know that they're streaky, but at the same time, you get the right streak. You never know what they can do. In the East, I think that Toronto and Boston are legitimate teams. They've both looked pretty good. And we also have seen here in the second half of the season, Charlotte's really come on. So, with the Cavs' dysfunction, I still think the Cavs are going to win in the East, but I don't think that they're going to just blow right through it. I think that Toronto or Boston, whoever wins that 2-3 matchup, or Charlotte, whoever gets them in the conference finals, will give them a pretty good finals. And you never know. I think they're going to win a couple games anyways. I think if the Cavs win, they'll win in 6 or 7. But one of those other toss-up games goes the other way. All of a sudden, you're seeing another team in the finals. So it'll be interesting.
And I think James makes an interesting point about not discounting the Clippers. Everyone forgets the Warriors did win last year's title, but it was because the Clippers knocked out the Spurs, and then the Rockets beat the Clippers. So that just goes to show how deep the West is. In regards to the East, if we stopped right now, 1 through 8, we'd see the Cavaliers take on the Pacers in the first round. And then in the second round, you're possibly talking about a matchup with the Celtics, who are a 4 seed right now. So the Pacers, as we saw just a couple nights ago, gave Cleveland a run for their money, beat them. So that's not going to be an easy series to start off with. And then you have to go against a very good Boston Celtics team who's having very good guard play right now. So, in that series, if Cleveland wants to advance, it's going to have to be a guy like Shumpert that shuts down the guard play for the Celtics. So I can honestly see that pushing the Cavaliers to a 7-game series with the Boston Celtics, really giving them a run for their money.
Any chance for Miami in the East, do you guys think?
I think that if they don't, without Bosch, I think that they're a different team. But no, I don't see them really compete. I mean, they'll compete in the first round. Obviously, they're not going to be an easy out for whichever team has to take them on. But I don't see them really competing at all for anything like the Eastern Conference Championship or anything.
Maybe just like a team that's there to push. I mean, last year we saw a couple of teams that forced a Game 6, but it was pretty much heavy-handed to the teams like the Hawks and the Cavs to have easy victories.
All right. So the other NBA topic throughout the season is Kobe Bryant, but playing his last couple games here. What are you guys' thoughts on Kobe's career?
I mean, his career's been good, but this season it's just been a joke.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting to see him go out like this. But I think it is time after 20 seasons. It is time to move on, and we've seen that with him this year. And so I'm happy to see that he'll go out.
I mean, pretty much we've seen what an older player retirement looks like. We've seen it with Derek Jeter and Peyton Manning. They had those fairy tale endings, but there was tail-offs. Thank you, James, for being on the show, and we'd like to thank you for tuning in to Fisher Sports Desk. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and Twitter, and tune in to see us on Cable Channel 12.